But I remember my mom calling my name, and it was behind me. There was my mom standing there in these blue jeans and white shirt. My mom is white, so she had this pale white skin and really dark long hair that kind of went down to her mid-back. I just remember her crying. And I don't know, why she's crying at the time, but I remember her crying and standing next to this strange woman. And as I got closer to her, she had grabbed my right hand and she leaned down, gave me a kiss on my forehead. And I remember just her eyes like looking at me kind of, watered, and then she handed my hand to this strange woman. The woman grabs my hand and she kind of pulls me and starts like walking me away from my mom. She puts me in the front seat and she reaches over and buckles me in. And I remember like looking back at my mom who hadn't moved, and she's still crying and just kind of standing there. And out of nowhere, as I'm watching my mom, I just remember hearing the sounds of crying. And then I turned to my left, look in the back seat, and there are my 3 siblings. She, started the car up, and I look at my mom, we backed out, and we drove off. My first memory is like the people that I loved the most, that I thought loved me, giving me away. And then what's worse is I feel like the next homes, some of the people, man, just really heinous people. Like just, looking back on the things that they did to me, it's like, how could a human do that to somebody else they're supposedly taking care of? One home I was put in a chicken coop and was forced to chase chickens inside this chicken coop. And if I caught a chicken, I get to eat a meal. And like you can picture the people laughing, like cackling, standing at the edge of this little, the chicken wire fence, just laughing at this little kid trying to chase a chicken. And they wouldn't feed me. I would have to sneak out of my bedroom. I would have to get into the kitchen, hop on the counter, and try and sneak food. And if I got caught, they would beat me. In the last house I was in, before I got to my home that's been mine ever since, the family was just a very twisted family is the best way to explain it. We had a bunch of neighborhood kids outside. There was one time he brought me out to the front of the house. He sat me on the curb, he pressed on my shoulders, and he grabbed my head, and he forced me to lick the bottom of all the kids' shoes. And I remember licking him until I had to be clean, and like the bleeding of the tongue because there's rocks and kids were making messes. I remember the line of kids. And so this for me is that feeling of it's a very worthless human feeling. Mom doesn't want me around. These people that are taking care of me aren't taking care of me. That's the hard part about it all is I'm so used to getting tortured and hit and beat by this time. This seems like normal life. In foster care, nobody realized this, but you don't go to one foster home and you stay there forever. You'll literally all of a sudden wake up one day, they'll put your clothes in a car and they'll drive you somewhere else. We got in the car, we drove around, we drove up to the house. There was some sense of peace in this car because the house I'd left, I'm out of crazy, I don't want to go back to it. I have no idea what's coming. I have no idea what I'm entering into. When I got there, they cried. Because they were looking at this little kid that definitely wasn't taken care of. And it's just this little, beat up kid. When I first got to that house, she wasn't mean. She loved on me. I was, at that time, I remember, consciously aware of trying to be as bad as I could so that they would send me back to my real mom still. I believe I broke 2 or 3 lamps the first week in the house. I acted out all the time. I was only allowed at kindergarten for 30 minutes because if I got there, I was a tornado and I caused problems for other kids. So they kicked me out of kindergarten very quickly. Honestly, I don't know how she handled me. When you're in foster care, all you want to do is go back to the family. Whether they're good or bad people, I just want to go back to mom. So I believe everything she says, and she knows it, so she's manipulating it. She'd call me and tell me, hey, I'm gonna, this is what's going on, what's going on. I was like, oh, it's okay, mom, I totally understand, right? Because I want to forgive her, and I want her to love me, to take me home. And then there was always, without fail, this, at the end of it, she would say, okay, pack a bag, wait by the window, at 8 o'clock, I'm gonna come pick you up. Every time, I'd pack a bag, I would sit by the window, as a car drive by, you see the lights, and the heart starts beating it's the car, and then it would just pass by, and it would happen over and over, and after a while, you realize she's not coming. 10 o'clock hits, she's not coming. And so I would always cry myself to sleep, and it, without fail, man, I could not stop it. We tried everything we could, but I would always wet the bed that night. One of the nights when I think it was 13 or something, I wet the bed and I woke up, and she had this care about her where I could see in her eyes she felt for me. This whole time, I knew she was there, they're taking care of me, but then I really wanted to be my mom, and it might have been maybe it was the last straw of my mom doing what she did that was I'm done with this, and I opened my heart for something else. But But I remember she was just there, and it was like this warmth, like this person I've been trying to be crazy to, like she just isn't giving up. And she's here when the other person I want to love me won't come back. Like she didn't have to keep me past the first week. She didn't have to keep me past the first year, let alone 8, and then up to this time. Like she did not have to do it. She could have easily called and said, get this kid out of here. The first time I really felt like, man, someone really loves me and this is what it feels like. But at 14, when I finally got adopted, I did get to play football. And I just remember being very bad at the game. I'm not as fast, I'm not as strong, I'm not as skilled. I wanted to feel accepted, you know, and I didn't have the support of like the teammates and everything because I was this kid that sucked in the team, and the sucky kid doesn't get as much love, let's just be honest, you know. So unfortunately, at the same time at 14, my adoptive mom gets diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It had really shook me. She did the work she did so I could go do great things. I remember standing up and looking in the same exact mirror that I, brushed my hair in every morning, and I quite literally just looked dead in my pupils and said, "You're going to be great. I want to be great at football. If I do the work, maybe I got a better shot." And so what I did is I figured, what do great football players do? Every single day for the entire offseason, and I'm not making any of this up, every single day I would have to catch a football while laying on my back 500 times. If I dropped one, it didn't count. And I wanted to get so used to catching a football that no one made fun of me for dropping the football. I wanted to learn how to run routes better than anybody else. I'm like, what happens if I get good at routes? Well, I'll get open, the ball comes to me, I'll catch it. I want to get faster, I want to get stronger. I started lifting weights and doing push-ups, everything I could. For the first time, I had a different sense of like, I now know who I am. I built this guy, but I know who I am, and you can't take this. And then when the ball's in the air, that's my football. I do not care if it was thrown to you. When you're running at me, I'm a wall. You don't get to come past me. Like, this is my spot, right? And if I got the ball, don't you dare think you get a chance to tackle me. Like, I did too much work for you to come tackle me. It was a different sense of owning this moment every single play. And that mentality went from where the year before I was horrible to where 2 games into my sophomore year, I got moved to varsity. From then on, like I balled out. She was in a wheelchair within a year. I felt like I got to be her legs. Whenever she would like see me play, like I felt like I'm doing it for mom. In fact, we had this really cool thing where I would score a touchdown, I'd point in the air. Like if I scored a touchdown, I'd point in the air. Part of it was for God, but mostly for mom at that time. And I remember like years I'd been doing this, and it just was cool to have her feel like the work and the effort she put into loving me was coming to be something great. It was 2008, playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a toss play. I went outside, I tripped on one of my teammates, went down, and the guy, the lineman from the other team, jumped on my back as I'm getting up. Shoulder went in and out, tore it. It wasn't even till the next day I even realized there was something wrong with it. And then, yeah, man, sure enough, career ending, season ending, and it was a different world.
When I got out of football, life fell apart.
I was, in the middle of a divorce. I had to take a look at the business I was running. It was up and down all the time. Every 2 weeks, making money, not making money. I'm living in a 500 square foot studio apartment. My 3 kids at the time were sleeping on an air mattress next to me. I wasn't the best dad. And then came the moment that changed everything. She'd had bouts, like she'd go into the hospital for a little bit and she'd come back out. But this time it was different. I remember sitting down and obviously she's not conscious, but like, it had been one of the first times in a long time I had a private conversation with her, like just me kind of sharing. And I went deep and thanked her for everything. Like I thanked her for the life she'd given me. Dude. So there's quite literally no way I have the kids I have at this time. There's no way I have the life I have at that time. There's no way I have any of these things if she isn't who she was. And I remember being in there and feeling this really deep wave of shame because I'd been in a situation where I'd gone to the NFL, but I was not living a good life at this moment. I was not the guy that I could look back and I didn't feel like she was proud of the man I was at that moment. And I just remember thinking in my head and saying to her Mom, I'm sorry I'm not doing what I should be at this point. Promise you I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna fix my life. I'm gonna get it figured out. And I realized man, you unconditionally loved me and it allowed me to be this. When I'm 15, I look in that mirror. That guy I look back at is he's young, he's got potential. He's not great, but I felt Felt like he could do great things. And I look in the mirror, and that guy I did not like. Just flat out didn't like him, man. I was ashamed of him. I would never want my daughter to be with a guy like that. Would never want my boys to be like that. My mom would not accept that. My man above wouldn't let me into heaven. There's no way. It was just this moment of, this can't continue on this way. There was no words spoken. We were just looking at the heart rate monitor, and you could actually hear audibly her heart rate declining. You see like she's breathing, and it comes in and it goes out, and then like there's one breath where it just comes in and it goes out, and that was it. And then you actually hear and see it flatline, and then it's like it's real. And I remember like my dad, man, I remember my dad just tears flew out of him. My grandma, myself. Like those are the moments where it's like, man, this is life. It just, like, it's that finite. The next 10 months were probably the hardest emotional 10 months of my life. From that moment forwards, I had to figure out, like, who am I? I didn't talk to people. I didn't go out and hang out. I didn't drink. I sat on a couch in my townhouse. I stared at a brown wall and asked myself questions I did not want to answer. It got me to the depths of like my parenting. I had to accept like, you're not being a good dad, like at all. I had a humongous role to play in my marriage falling apart. And it was a tough pill to swallow, but I owned it. I figured some things out and I got some traction. And I finally, 2 years after, I made good on Promise 1. My ex-wife and I reconnecting and having different conversations, and we would just talk. And it was conversations that weren't, there wasn't a blame anymore. There wasn't this, you did this. It was more of like getting to know the new person that you each become. I got to meet someone for the first time that I'd known for 16 years. I got myself back, I got my family back, and I operate a different tick.
We are all met with moments where we not only get to see who we are, but we get to choose who we will become. And it's in those moments that we must realize that our new life is going to cost us our old one. But when you decide to pay that price by giving up your old bad habits, your ego, your excuses, your lack of self-belief, and your anger from past pain, that you decide to experience life at a level so few ever get a chance to experience. A life full of happiness, fulfillment, joy, peace, and overwhelming gratitude. Not only for the good, but also for the bad. Because those times strengthened you to endure. They were the fire that hardened your will and resolve to create a life far bigger than the one you could have ever imagined. A life where you get to finally know who you are, why you're here, and what you're supposed to do with your life. You are the most powerful being on this planet, and you were created for a purpose far greater than your eyes could ever see. I know this because you close your eyes and you listen closely. You'll hear your heart whispering, it's time to play bigger. The question you have to ask yourself is, will you?